July 27, 2015, Washougal City Workshop Meeting. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Greenlee,
Here.
Councilmember Wagner,
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay, Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker,
Here.
Councilmember Boger,
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Councilmembers McDaniel and Lindsay let us know that they would not be present this evening. Is there anyone that would like to address council from the public? Not your only opportunity. We will be back to it. New business, finance, information technology, website preview. Theo, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to present you guys with the redesigned website that we've been working on for the past probably 6 or 7 months now. This is our original website, and for the most part, we've gotten really good feedback from it. But some of the major complaints were it's difficult to find things that aren't on the front page. There's no social media integration at all available with this. It would be very difficult to add on. And it's difficult for a non-technical person, such as staff, to figure out how to use it. It's very complicated in the back end. So going forward, we went with a pre-designed product that is simpler to use, has social media integration, and is based on a more intuitive approach to citizens or just the public using websites. So this is the initial presentation. So what we have here is, obviously our City of Washougal logos, and then we have a menu system similar to what we have. But the way this is approached is that we have multiple entry points for different ways that people may think of how to get to stuff. Like for something that somebody who thinks is, oh, this is a public works issue, somebody may not understand that that's a public works issue. So we've created multiple entry points, such as the, I'll use the parks as an example. For our community, somebody might be in the community and say, okay, I want to look at parks and stuff in my community, so they'll see that the Parks and Trail is here. Then there might be somebody visiting who also would like to know about the parks or other things that are available in the local area, and we have that available here. And then there's also an How Do I section, which is the biggest difference that we haven't had before, that are just common things that citizens would ask on how to accomplish a task. How do I pay my water bill? What city services are available? What's going on in the city calendar? Building permits, things of that nature. So this is going to be the biggest, hopefully the most heavily used area of the website from now on to answer very simple, everyday questions that most of our citizens have. And we'll be adding and moving stuff out as we find that people may want other things or not use these type of things. But the goal is to make everything, within 1 or 2 clicks and to accommodate as many different thinking styles as will come and visit our websites. So this is just a brief listing here. And then on the rest of the website here, we have our key links here. And these are the most common things that we found that most of our visitors use. One is the agenda and minutes, the pay your bill, pay your water bill, report a concern, the municipal code. We've added this section. Before in the past, we've had a email subscription blast that people could sign up for. This is going to take it a step further, and there's different sections that there'll be different things that people can now sign up for instead of just agendas. We can have job openings, we can have latest news, bids and RFPs, and if people subscribe to these groups, every time we post something, we can send out and blast them just information on that instead of only sending out agendas or only specific topics that not everybody would be interested in. So we're trying to reach as many communication possibilities as possible with that. And then there's also the videos link, which is pretty common. It has the videos both from downtown Washougal, some of the other the ones from Cuida and different things, just from the area specifically. The Vancouver side one we had. And then also a link here to our YouTube channel where all of the meetings are posted. And if you have any questions at any time, just interrupt me and I'll be happy to answer.
Under notify me, there was a checkbox for text. What's that?
It was test. That was just a test group. We're testing some of the emails. It won't be there when we go live.
So when we're already subscribed? Do we need to go back to notify me and?
For all the existing people that we have, we exported that list, and it'll automatically be subscribed to agendas, because that's what they were originally signing up for, kind of a thing. But when we go live, which is we're going to go live this Friday, we will send out an email explaining that there's other things that they can subscribe to. We also have a list of utility customer emails that we're going to send out to them just to let them know that they can now subscribe to different things. So hopefully we'll get the word out that way. But in the initial part, the only ones we'll pre-subscribe are the agendas.
Okay, thanks.
And then we have this banner here to the right, which right now we're just using a mixture of kind of like ads and scenery shots from around Washougal. So we have downtown here. There should be a visit Washougal. And then we have one at the high school that was really nice with Mount Hood. And we can create links to any of these, or we don't have to have links, but they can go to other places. So this will accommodate anything we want to do in the future. We can highlight events going on in the city. For instance, we'll have the Sup Classic probably coming up on here shortly with a link to that website and different things. So this is very easy to use. Most people, it's very easy for me to train anybody to use it. It's just like using Word pretty much. So it'll be more useful, I'm hoping, to the staff. Then as we go farther down the page here, we have what's new section, which is similar to our middle section that we currently use with press releases and things like that. The problem with this is that once you get to a certain number, it just goes on forever and ever, and it makes it very difficult to find things. So on the new website, we have a limit of 5 right now, or 4. We have a limit of 4, but then at any time you can click on View All News, and you can either sort by news by certain departments, but you can also see the dates of everything that was posted. And it's just a lot easier to read, so you don't have to try and figure out, oh, I saw something last week, but you go through a whole list of stuff. And on the old system, we also had to remove things in order to make room, and we won't have to do this on this new system. So every news event will be able to stay there indefinitely. And then we have a search bar, and this one works a lot better than our old one. It also scans PDF documents. So when you type in a keyword, it'll not only search an article that we may have put in a news posting, but also anything that's located in the PDF file. So that should be much more useful than we have in the past. And then we have a 2-tab system here. We split out events, which are basically community events, and then meetings. So you see the council workshops listed here. And with the time, you can basically go into this council workshop, and you'll have all the information you need from this. You'll have the agenda and the packet, and then once the meeting was over, you would have video links, and you would also have minutes. And I can show you what that looks like here. We've loaded all the historical data. So here's some other ones. So we have video links, agendas, and anyone can go in here and search, as far back as we have, which I believe is pretty far, at least 11, I think, 2011. And it's just a matter of one click, and you're there at the packet. It'll download it, and you're ready to go. Some are large, but. And then another good feature that this also has, if somebody wants to attend, say, this next city council meeting on the 24th, and you go to the details for that council meeting, not only do we have the ability to share it both on multiple social media events like Facebook or Twitter or things like that, they can print it, but we also have now ability to add it to Outlook and to your Google Mail calendar, which wasn't available before. So hopefully we'll have people able to use that and find that useful as well. And then the only thing left on the front page then is just some basic information at the bottom that most web pages have. It's our footer information. We have our address, contact information, some quick links to like jobs, services that are available. We don't have too many services listed, but an example would be community gardens is considered a service for the Parks Department. We have fingerprinting by the police. This is also available in the How Do I. We have city services here. So again, multiple ways to get to the same thing where people may be used to looking at them one way but not able to find it. So we want to make as many avenues as possible for them to get to it. And we'll add this as the staff gets used to this new system will be adding more and more services to make it easier for people to find things. And then we also have all of our social media links on here now, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We also have links to, we have multiple social media things now, so we also have Visit Washougal, Facebook and Twitter. We have Washougal Parks links, Washougal Memorial Cemetery links, as well as our policies and information. So that's it for the front page. I'm going to show you some of the department pages. Were there any questions on that?
Just an observation, it would, for news, it would be awfully useful to be able to search a text string instead of by department.
Yeah, I believe we can, if you do it under the regular search here, let's see.
And for the council meetings and workshops, unfortunately, I think those are all PDF documents, and can you search those for text?
Some of them we can. We're moving actually because some of the PDF documents, especially before 2013, they were scanned images, so
Right.
we can't scan those.
Right.
They're just treated as pictures. Some of the newer ones we've been trying to save as PDF or print to PDFs, and those will recognize text. So we're trying to do as many of those from this point forward as possible.
Yeah, that would be really useful to be able to search for text string.
Yeah, so like this one I just did, this was one of the text strings, so I put that in the search field, and it brought up the article that had what I was searching from the front page. So you can use the search box for that. Okay, and then I'll give you an example of, we'll go ahead and go to the city council page. So another change that I made as we were going through and researching a lot of stuff is that in most cities and local governments, people were used to going to mayor and city council, not finding mayor in the administration page and then city council and not seeing any mayor stuff. So we actually put the mayor in both places because he is, in our environment, he's both. He's a part-time employee, but he's also mayor and city council under the way we are. So here we have included him, and this is embedded, what we call embedded pages. So every one of the council members and the mayor has their own page. We can change any information at any time. And when you click on one of them, I'll click on Brent since he's first. It has the bios that we're used to seeing before, and we've included their terms. And then we also have a contact card that'll give all the contact information, phone number, email, and the position, council position. It's also included on the first page, but. And then for the administration page, where we've included the mayor, it's slightly different style, but we included the mayor and the city administrator and then Rose. Now, on all the department pages, if you look on the left-hand side, we have our standard navigation here, and then we have the contact information. These three items here in Resource Center are on every single department page, and it will have different information. If there's not a specific contact number, it'll always have City Hall. Down here, we have this really, really nice feature, and it also saves screen space, but we have what's called a Resource Center. And these are separate tabs. We have news, documents, and forms. So news is everything that, it could be on the featured news, or it could just be news about that department. So if Public Works is doing micro sealing, we might only keep that up on the main website for a few days, but we want the history of it, so we'll take it off being featured and just have it in the news article so anybody can look at it at any time and have that historical data. And then any documents that belong to the department, and then any forms that they might fill out. Utility billing actually would be a better example for that section. They have quite a bit. So we've tried to expand some of the basic information that a lot of the departments had to give it an easier feel, more of a push button, kind of like a iPad, I guess you could say, feel for it, or just a little bit easier to not have to search so much. So that's why we went with this kind of button system on most of our pages. Here's the contact information, and here we go, documents. They only have one document, but they have a lot of forms. And then at the end of each department, you also have separate forms where you can find all the forms that are related just to that department, or you can search for every department or whatever you would like.
Question, if you've got Windows 8.1, can you touch the screen and get to it?
Yeah, just like you would. It's in the browser, so you could touch it just like you would normally. So then another nice feature here we have is with frequently asked questions. This system has its own frequently asked questions module, and it makes it very useful. I'll use animal control as an example here. So we have a little bit of information about the department. Rick's going to be able to put actual pictures of the dogs and then their information, which he hasn't been able to do in the past. He would just put their information. So we'll be able to get him to be able to post pictures, which should help finding stuff. But then we have this nice section down here at the bottom, which are frequently asked questions. That before we had it was a long list. You couldn't really search for them, and it was difficult to do. You can actually search on anything that's here, and then you can expand just like you would on anything else, each section, and find your answer to those questions. It also has things where you can hide all the answers, or you can show all the answers and then scroll through them. And then again, everything that we have, every page will have the ability to share it. So if there's useful information and somebody wants to share it, they'll be able to do that. Code enforcement, they don't have an FAQ, but they have, this is a little bit, with this one we decided not to go with buttons. We went with a different style with a read more option, just because she didn't have as many as other departments did. But we can put these standard embedded pages, they're called, and then we can also, for her, we did a gallery of pictures, so we can show before and afters of different things. And when you click on them, it'll bring up in a larger image. And we can have text, and this is a before, and then you just basically click the arrows, and you can see what it was like after. And then also as part of this, we have some very specific feature add-ons that were included as part of this. One of them is bids and RFPs. Before, we would just create a news article in the old system, and we didn't really have any tracking ability. Now we'll be able to post an actual bid, an RFP, and then we can put a date of when it's going to close, and it'll close automatically. And that will historically be there. We can say that when it was awarded, if it was canceled. So we'll have historical information that we didn't have before. We just kept tracks in place on a system, but now this will be available to the public. We have the same type of system for jobs. If you go for how do I apply for a job, we're going to have the same type of situation for any open positions we have. They'll be able to see when it was closed, if it was canceled. And then for each one of these, we can have any information we want. We can include the job description or any other type of pictures or anything else we might need to provide. And then, let's see, the next big one is the parks, the park sites. Before, we had an interactive map, but it was just a picture of Washougal, and we had some buttons on it. And then we had a spreadsheet, basically a PDF with the amenities. What we were able to do here is create a Google map layout. We have the addresses for each park plugged in, and we were able to separate out all the amenities so that anybody can search based on what amenities they're looking for at a park. So if somebody wants a park that has electricity available, they click on that, and it'll only show them the parks down below here that have electricity, or locations that have electricity. So then we can totally expand this list or add to it, or if there's ever something that comes along later. What if they only want parks that have restrooms, for instance? Same situation. So this park sites is going to be a nice feature, and they can click on either the link, and they'll get the Google location, and they can also click here and they'll get an actual page. Every park has its page, just like it did before. We're still adding some pictures, but we also have the PDFs that Suzanne's created in the past for each park with information as well. Then you'll notice that also on the director pages, which are the main pages, so for parks, we have the pictures of the director for that area, and then their contact information. And then we also have something called the contact details, which I kind of skipped over, but on every sub-site or every department page, there's a contact details, and you'll get the list of employees that are part of that department. You get their hours, just like you would before, but you'll get this and contact information for each employee that is part of that department. Before, we just had it in different spots, and people were in multiple areas and not right addresses and things like that. So what's great about this is just one location where this information is stored. So when we update or remove, it's just we change it once, and then the whole system will update it wherever it was following. That's just another example. So then I already went over services, but I'll go ahead and we also have the documents and report searching, which allows you to search, again, either by every department, or you can just do keyword searches like Paul was asking about. You can just type in a phrase, and as long as it was a PDF that we were able to scan all the text, then it'll come up. If it was an old style, then we won't do that. We actually have been, especially for utility billing, we try to convert as many of the PDF files that we brought over to be fillable now, so that customers can fill them out online and then print them or email them directly from their computers without having to fill them in by hand anymore, hopefully to alleviate errors and things like that. So you can type in things and then either email it or save it or whatever they want to do. So that's pretty much it. You have any questions or anything you were looking for specifically?
Is it being rolled out?
We're going to be rolling it out Friday, probably by noon at the latest. We want to give the weekend time to update the internet, because once you change over, it takes a while before everyone points to it.
Okay.
Looks good.
Yeah, very pleased.
I like it.
Thank you, Theo.
Yep.
Good luck this week. Okay, moving along to Public Works, cemetery rates. Suzanne?
Okay, well, the cemetery rates haven't been adjusted since 2009, comprehensive adjustment. So this is what this topic of discussion is going to be covering, is the complete overhaul of the majority of the rates that we have for the cemetery. So our cemetery is 12.9 acres, and we have about 83% of that currently in use. We have about 2 acres, 2¼ acres that are not being used at this time, but those are encumbered by either property line encroachments to the north or large boulders to the south. So we have to be creative about moving forward in development of those properties. The current inventories that we have for sale are about 1950 in full adult lots. And these numbers are all estimates because we don't have an accurate way to calculate those other than hand counting. So our current computer program doesn't allow us to just pull up numbers of available inventory. So that is the inventory that we have calculated at this time. And then there's our, we allow the burial of 3 cremated remains on a casket or 4 total burials on one lot, so. We did our rate comparison back in 2014, and we compared against the city of Camas, the city of Vancouver, and the Fern Prairie Cemetery. And we concluded that rates survey and presented those for review in November 2014. So it's taken a little bit of time to get before you. So it's been about 9 months, but here we are. It takes a little bit. Overall, we have varying rates of increase. The majority of the increases are about 15%. That's 2.5% each year, and it's been 6 years, so that works out about accurate with the, the finance department uses the financial consulting services rate of inflation, so that's about right in line. A couple of the things are starred. We have some rate decreases for child lots. To drop that down to current market in other areas, we're a little bit high, so we thought that we would fall back in line with some of the other jurisdictions that are offering that rate for a little bit less. Also, creming lots, we dropped that down so that we could be competitive with other cities and hopefully increase some of our sales in those areas. But overall, we have increases in some areas and no changes in others. But overall, we're trying to stay competitive in between. It's difficult to compete with Fern Prairie because they're like a mom and pop kind of organization in the city of Camas and Vancouver are higher than us in most of the services that we provide. So. Here's our service rates that we provide. There are no changes in some here, and also about the 15% increase in others. We did provide or ask for another service to be set up, which is tent service. We are asking for a rate for canvas tent and for pop-up tents. The reason for this is not to be price gouging. It's more of a cost efficiency for us. Sometimes we go through the process of setting up a tent or taking great pains to make sure that the funeral is set up for a full service, and then the family just comes up and the casket is delivered and there's no service at all. So this is more to make the delineation between services and non-services and make sure that we're covering our expenses when there is a request for tents. And this is our marker setting and miscellaneous rates. We did add another two services that we would like to provide. One is staking and ground lots, and then the other is genealogical searches. Sometimes those genealogical searches can take hours and hours out of staff time. So it was requested that we add that service as just a times shop rate. So, and then the staking and ground lots, periodically we have folks who question our services. So it takes a little bit of time to go out and set those pins up for a funeral and to go through that process arbitrarily for someone. It was a little bit time consuming for us. We've done it several times in the last couple of years. So we want to make sure that we're more in the maintenance mode rather than the service mode when we're not actually providing a service that is, I'm not sure how to explain that, but I'll just let that tail off a little bit. Yeah, it's been very time consuming consuming for us to go out and set up the stakes for precise measurements of where the markers and the burials are, so. And that's all I have.
Questions for Suzanne? Oh,
Does this come pretty, as near as you can tell, I know it's kind of finger in the wind guess, but does this come pretty close to covering costs?
Yeah, it does. It meets our costs. We're a little bit ahead. It depends on how efficient. Sometimes funerals can take a little bit longer than anticipated because family can sometimes linger a little bit longer than what is anticipated. So at times it will be very cost effective, and sometimes it goes a little bit over, so.
And roughly speaking, which of these, does a piece of it go to the perpetual care fund?
Perpetual care, I believe, is, off the top of my head, it's 60%. And then 10% goes to capital, and then the remainder goes to the maintenance fund.
Thank you.
any other questions? So you just come back on the 10th? Thank you, Suzanne.
We're gonna resurrect it on the 10th.
Yeah. I wasn't going to ask too much about the disinterment rates, but Rob, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
You've got some information for us on 27th Street.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little background and then an update on where we are, coming back to council with some more information. So the legislature has approved $7.5 million for the overpass project. For those of you that aren't real familiar, it's a new bridge over the railroad at 27th Street North, would line up roughly 28th Street. So it'd be very, very similar to what the Washougal River Bridge looks like. The Transportation Master Plan identified this as the largest CIP project that was highest priority for the council and identified in the plan. Unfortunately, the current estimate for the project is at over $16 million, $16.568 million to be precise. That's what's identified in the current.
When was that CIP adopted?
The CIP was adopted last year, middle of last year. Yeah.
And still, that was specifically identified as a new?
Yeah, unfortunately, that $7.5 million was a carryover from a previous CIP, and we never got the updated number into the legislative packet before that number made it, became a solid number.
All right. But originally, the $7.5 million was intended to be the full cost.
Correct. And then the overpass project is one part of a larger series of projects that aids in economic development and safety. So it's the 32nd Street corridor, SR 14 widening, new interchange along 14, and then an access from the new interchange to the 27th Street overpass. Since this project now has funding, it would be prudent to refresh the council on what alternatives analysis went through. Was gone through when the previous overpass was chosen as the selected alternative. An update on the impacts of the overpass being constructed well ahead of any of the other improvements, including traffic circulation. I think we know that with the new transportation package, it's probably unlikely we're going to see additional large amounts of spending out on SR 14. So this project would be built likely well ahead of anything that did occur in the future. And if we go through this analysis with our consultant, if the project's deemed feasible, a discussion of other funding opportunities to close the funding gap, SDP, TIB, maybe some Tiger II economic development grants that we'd be able to poise ourselves for if we moved ahead with the project. So in your notebooks, I believe you have information on the proposed scope from Parsons to update the assumptions and some additional analysis on traffic flow and circulation that were made as part of the original TSP and that would be presented to council. And that would allow you to make the decision whether to proceed, modify, or come back with more information, or stop the project. And typically, I know we don't approve council agenda items on the same night, but we are asking for action later on in the council agenda for approval of that item.
Michelle?
I have one question. That money, is it good for only a certain number of years? Is there any date specified on when it must be used?
Don't know that. It's in the
Don't-
first
don't
4
know
years
that.
of funding of the entire transportation package.
Yeah.
But I don't know that can't be pushed back as well.
Is that something we can find out? I don't know, to try and accumulate money over a longer period of time, and you're saying this project precedes a lot of other projects, that, I'm just curious about the whole timing of it.
Yeah, that would still happen no matter what. Well, it would likely happen no matter what. In the transportation package, the state did not allocate any money for improved accesses out on Highway 14 or any of that, so unless somewhere money starts falling from the sky.
Right? But it would just give us more time to accumulate
Oh, no
another
doubt,
pot of money,
no doubt.
since there's no economic zone up there yet, too. But
Correct.
We were a little bit surprised that all of the projects in Kamush and Washoe were actually funded in the first
Yeah.
4 years of the program, or at least programmed to be funded in the first 4 years.
So Rob, the 7 million, what,
7.5 million.
7.5, 7.8
Five.
or 5, you said? You mentioned that it was an old figure and it would have been updated. What would it have been updated to?
16.
16.5, 16.6.
And there's no going back another year from now saying, hey, when you're funding next year or
2 years maybe.
2 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly comprehensive package that the legislature passed, so with large gas tax increases. So I guess I would put money on it. I would imagine that would be difficult to go back and ask for another half of the project or some additional. I can't say never, but it would probably be fairly difficult.
So what caused the discrepancy, the timing? What?
Well, the previous estimate that was done was probably on 10 years old, and that's the number that unfortunately was given to the, regulations are different now. Federal requirements for money, federal permitting, all the permits you have to acquire, cost escalation, and then right of
More
way.
than double.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We also, though, in the 16 million, there's a 25% contingency factored in there because it's Burlington Northern and the uniqueness of the project. So there's significantly more contingency built into that number than we would normally build into anything.
How long has this been number one on our, I know we update the CIP every year, correct?
Well, we were supposed to come back and look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's number 4 on the list, but the other two projects are the travel information sign and the 32nd Evergreen project, which will occur next, well, the 32nd Evergreen
So
project.
this was
Bill
going to
fixed.
keep moving up the list as these other much smaller projects get done.
Right.
Okay. But it's been on our list for how long?
Well, going on a year now.
The 27's been on the list longer than that, hasn't it?
Well, boy, I'd have to look at Mitch in terms of. 05?
That's what I
Okay,
mean.
that's- I
Yeah,
don't know what priority it was
It
back
was a
then.
10-year-old figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This list of projects, I'm trying to remember, and I get lost on the difference between some of these lists. One of the lists had some large had 3 or 4 different kinds of projects on separate lists, or is this a combined list?
This is a combined list, and it's got high, medium, and low priority. And this particular project was given a high priority.
Well, but for example, sidewalks on Shepherd Road were on one of the lists. And I don't know if it's on that list or if it is.
It is.
It is, okay.
Yep. And it's a high priority project. Some of this is flexible in terms of getting funding. It would
Oh,
move up-
exactly, yeah.
move up higher in the priority list.
Yeah, if number 7 gets funded before number 1, guess which one you do?
Right.
Other questions for Rob? Michelle?
Yeah, is there a reason why we're going out to Persons Brinkoff so soon after getting this funding? Or why, are we on some sort of timeline here?
I think since we clearly don't have $7.5+ million, it's a big commitment to the council to continue onward with this project. So we want to be able to provide enough information for you to make an informed decision as to, is this the best place for an overpass? I mean, we've done some initial analysis, but really I think we need a commitment that this is the project we want to move forward with and commit future dollars that we don't have right now.
And I think we want to be fair to the state. If for some reason the project isn't going to move forward, that they can unencumber that money. Paul?
So I mean, you touched on some of the questions that I would have. I mean, when we looked at this in 2012, it was all on the assumption that it was part of the $100 million SR-14 project. And one of the things that occurs to me is when I look back at those drawings, I realize that they're not designs. That if you look at Main Street at 27th, the flyover angles a bit to the east of due north, which means that it's more than a 90-degree turn from westbound on Main Street to go over 27th, which is certainly problematic if you had a tractor-trailer rig. And then the other problem is that you've got that rail spur right there at Main Street. And that, I don't know whether that gets in the way or not, but I think relocating that is problematic. And then there's a serious question with all of the turns and what traffic control devices are you going to need to have on traffic lights on Main Street, on 27th, on Evergreen. Serious question as to whether you're going to save any time negotiating all of those traffic control devices. So that's something I'd like to see addressed. And then you mentioned safety issues. I'm not aware that there's been an accident related to that crossing in more than a decade.
I think I did the application for the 32nd Evergreen TIB project. I recall the police department said there was a couple of small accidents, but nothing major.
No
certainly.
injury accidents, right. So my understanding, and I'm a bit out of my depth here, is that the normal way of scoring, if you will, whether to do a grade separated crossing has to do with the economic value of wait time and the economic value of accidents. And so that's a question worth asking, is if you were going to score this and apply for money on the basis of the score, especially if you look at the whole project from 32nd to up over the flyover and back up onto 32nd, what are those economic values? Does it work? How does it score? Would you qualify?
Certainly on the safety side, it would be something we'd have to make sure we had the correct language in our grant applications. I think on the economic development side, we can show that the future urban growth area that's developed into high light employment, TIB has been they've worked with us. In fact, they've helped fund the 32nd Evergreen project based on future light employment in that zone.
Well, but specifically the question on a flyover versus a at-grade crossing has to do with the economic value of wait times. And scoring on that question, that's something that Parsons Brinckerhoff should be very familiar with, and they should be able to do that.
Dave? Oh, no, sorry.
How many of these questions are going to be answered by the presentation on 10 August by Parker's Brinkerhoff?
Well, we hope all of them. That's our goal, is to really get you as much information as we can to make sure you're able to
Okay, because they
give us
seem like,
direction.
they seem like the kinds of things that would fit into that presentation.
Yeah, I think Paul and I have already had an offline
Right.
discussion, but I think I've already talked to Parsons about some of the issues that at least Paul and I suspect the rest of the council may have as we make that presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Rob? Okay, so we're still on schedule for the 10th?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Chief, you're up.
Let me give you copies of this. This is something I wrote for you tonight. This is what was in the post record last.
Don, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here early. Juvenile curfew discussion.
Yes, so this is a discussion. This actually came out of one of our recent public safety meetings, and the question came about is, can Washougal have a curfew? So it was recommended. I think I put some materials together and handed those materials out to the public safety group.
That was helpful, thanks.
And then from there, the request was to bring it here and to see, and just have a discussion if this is something that we wanted to pursue based on the information that I could provide to you, and there's some legal challenges, so I asked Don to be here to kind of present that piece of it. But just from the police side, we have juvenile crime that happens certainly at night, but I can't think of any places in the city that we have a consistent problem with juvenile activity that's crime related. So certainly, as officers are about and we see kids out late at night, early in the morning, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we do have a community caretaking function that would allow us to contact them and, hey, what are you doing, or what are you doing here, and deal with that issue. But to my knowledge, and kind of looking around the county, I'm not aware of any of the cities that in Camas, Washougal, Battle Island Center that have a curfew. So, yes.
What kind of crimes do they fall into? What categories? You said you have had crimes by juveniles.
Sure. So you might see graffiti or some malmish or things of that nature that would occur when kids could be out bored and
What was
nothing
the
to do.
second one you said?
Malmish, like destruction of property. I'm sorry.
That's a legal term, malmish.
Hey, speak English.
Sorry. So, maybe every once in a while we get, and I don't know that it's always been tied to juveniles, so it's hard to tell. Someone takes a baseball bat and smashes a series of mailboxes, that type of thing. So, but I can't say, or I can't come to you and tell you that, geez, if we had a curfew, it's going to prevent certain types of criminal activity that we're having issues with. Yes?
Where was this initiated again? At one of your public
At our
safety
public
meetings?
safety meeting,
So
yeah.
just folks around town asking about it then,
No,
or?
it was me.
Yeah,
Oh,
actually a council.
okay.
There are
Folk around town, right?
All right.
I'm folk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Well, because at public safety, we were discussing some problematic areas in the city.
Okay.
And then that brought me to curfews, which sort of filtered down into juvenile curfews, so.
I didn't know if there was like a group of pitchfork people.
No,
Okay,
no.
all right, okay.
I left it out.
All right,
That's
okay.
not parking.
Oh, you didn't say broomstick. Okay.
That's my neighborhood.
So again, from my side, that's, unless you have any other questions, that's kind of how we see it, and Don can kind of maybe share with you. It's not impossible to have a curfew. I think there's some constitutional challenges that would go with that, and that's what Don can present to you, and then.
Connie, Joe, this has come up in the past, it seems to cycle through where somebody asks a question, can you do a curfew? And the answer is yes, you can do a curfew. In fact, there's a specific state statute, 35A 11-210, for non-chartered code cities, which we are. It says any code city has the authority to enact an ordinance for the purpose of preserving the public safety or reducing acts of violence by or against juveniles that are occurring at such rates as to be beyond the capacity of the police department to assure public safety, establishing times and conditions under which juveniles may be present in public streets, in the public parks, or in any other public place during specified hours. And it goes on to state, Section 2 of that, the ordinance shall not contain any criminal sanctions for violation of the ordinance. In other words, it'd have to be an infraction, or a fine. Right, so that's the news that you can do it. Case law.
What was the number on that
It's
law?
RCW, whereas Revised Code of Washington 35A 11-210.
Thank you.
So the fact is you can do it, of course, according to state statute. Case law is a little bit different. Case law over the last, since the 1970s, there's at least 3 that we know of that have been, that have had curfew ordinances struck down as being unconstitutional. There have been attempts to establish juvenile curfew, been held unconstitutional from 1970 through 2003. I'll kind of go through just briefly some of the cases and why they were struck down. One was Seattle versus Pullman, 1973, an ordinance, and this is very typical. I'm sure Brent will verify this. It's too vague. I mean, that's one of the big. That's the first thing you look at. It's too vague. It's vague, void for vagueness is the term. It's overbroad. It doesn't. In this particular case, it said it did not segregate innocent conduct versus harmful conduct. The second case is State versus JD, which is of the city of Bellingham. Again, they had quite a bit of crime in their business district there with drugs and alcohol, some assaults increasing. They had a 10 p.m. curfew on Sunday through Thursday through Sunday, and then on the weekends it was 11. Again, and this actually says that it violated the minors' rights of free expression, and it held that the minors have the same basic fundamental rights as adults. Basic. I mean, there's segregated as far as drinking and some smoking, some other things, but they still have the right to freedom of expression. And it said that it must be related to a compelling purpose. There must be an evil that's being sought to be dealt with in the ordinance. Again, the same vague. It was vague. There were some exemptions there, and it was held that hey, it's too vague to determine what's a crime and what's not a crime. The most recent case is 2003, City of Sumner versus Walsh. There actually, the father was cited for telling his son to go down to the store and buy him some, I think it was gum. I don't think it was cigarettes or anything. It was gum. Or maybe, I think he'd been twice. One was gum and one was Advil, I think. And they'd seen this kid out, riding his bike, and they'd said, what the heck are you doing out here, 2 in the morning or whatever. And so I cited the dad, and here they held that this is our Supreme Court in 2003, that it violated the rights to rear your child. Again, and then
Was it a school night?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is what the Supreme Court held. It's not necessarily how I would feel about it, but and again, the old void for vagueness is too vague. So, on the one hand, the legislature said you can do it. I guess the caveat is you have to do it at your own risk a little bit, because the ones I could find that have been challenged had all been held to be unconstitutional. That's kind of why we've avoided having to do this. And then with Ron saying that, even the ordinance that allows, or even the state statute that allows you to do it says there's some specific concerns that you have to establish where you have to need it. And to read those again, it says, it must acts of violence by or against juveniles that are occurring at such rates as to be beyond the capacity of the police to assure public safety, establishing times and conditions under which juveniles may be present on public streets. So that's the challenge that you have. I think we'd have to put something, if we did an ordinance, we have to put something in the ordinance that there's a finding of fact that we aren't able to deal with it on some other basis here, that public safety is not able to do that, and the capacity of the police to assure public safety has been impinged. I think that's what we'd have, a finding we'd have to put if we put it in an ordinance, so.
Is violence a key word in that?
It's several things. Public safety in general, violence by or against juveniles. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a key thing. If we'd had a problem with juveniles congregating and fighting, or a fight club, or beating people up, or,
Gang shootings.
gang, like a gang type of thing, I think, yeah, it would definitely probably be more of a meritorious situation, so.
It's throwing an egg. I'm sorry, but it's throwing an egg violence.
Throwing an egg? I don't know, is it hard-boiled, or
Toilet paper.
is it hard-boiled, or is it soft?
I would say if it was raw and you threw it at former police officer Frank Conacoa's vehicle at the time, was probably inciting violence.
Are you making an admission there, Mayor? or
Not me.
Somebody you know, maybe.
We'll leave it at that.
Anyway, so, I mean, there it is. I guess that if we were going to do it, I would say we'd have to put something in there, findings of fact, that, yes, this is a problem with violence or public safety that is beyond the capacity to control in some other means. If you see a kid out smashing mailboxes, you don't worry about a curfew, you charge them with malicious mischief. If they're assaulting somebody, you charge them with assault. I think the other thing is, there have been some cities that have, after this last case, have enacted some ordinances, and apparently they haven't been challenged yet, but there's talk there that, if the parents aren't home, then there's no relative that can take the child, then you have to take them someplace. So then you get into, or you're babysitting them or taking them down to juvenile court, or one of your two officers that's available is making a run down to some social service agency. Is that an issue?
I mean, and we can't hold them. I might assume they're treated like a runaway, so with a runaway, a lot of times we'll have them sit in the lobby, and if they leave, they leave. We can't can't stop them. So,
It's an infraction, you can't put them in one of the cells.
no, we can't restrict.
You
their-
can't even restrain them.
Right.
If they've got to leave, they leave, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
Well, bottom line, you're not being overwhelmed by stuff that we can't handle.
And then we can't make the findings that I think are required in the ordinance, so I don't think we can validly adopt,
Unless Ron can give us something, or the, staff can give us something and say it's beyond the thing that they could control, in their normal course of their business.
Well, I would be glad and happy to say we don't have anything like that.
Yeah, right. That's a good thing, right?
No.
So that's kind of a good thing.
Now, in consideration of adults, however,
Different story.
I'm kidding.
That's a total different deal.
And we can go, for those reasons, contact kids that look appropriately young, I guess, out late at night under that community caretaking.
You folks know
policy.
where you are. and-
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of so if they are thinking about coming up or doing something that they shouldn't be doing, at least they know, hey, we've contacted you, we're watching, we got your name. So,
Right.
So you can't pick them up and drive them home. You don't send them home, you just ask them what they're
it
doing.
really depends on their age. If it looks, I mean, we can always call the parent.
That's what I would do, is
mention,
call the parents and just say, hey, your son's out, did you know? And they said, yes, I guess then,
And a lot of them is probably,
Huh.
you know,
Yeah, what's it to ya?
well, you
One
woke
of,
me up.
one of the things that this last case said, I'll just read this. It says that we recognize it may be difficult for a city to draft a curfew ordinance that is not unconstitutionally vague. That gives you some idea of how they tend to look at these things. The primary reason for that, as we pointed out in Pullman, is that the curfew ordinances attempt to make activities that are normally considered innocent, unlawful, i.e. walking, driving, going to the store. If a city chooses to establish a curfew that does not simply make it unlawful for a juvenile to be in a public place after curfew hours, with no exceptions, it must establish a line between conduct that does not fall under the ordinance and that which does, in the way that the ordinance can be enforced in a non-arbitrary manner. So that's a Supreme Court justice says, you can try it, but it's going to be difficult for us to do it constitutionally.
Do we have a noise curfew?
We have a noise
Sure.
ordinance.
Ordinance, that's the word I should have used, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
And what time is that?
10 o'clock.
Because I'll tell you, summer times in my community, I mean, it's just a real general suburb, you know, but those kids are out there playing all hours of the night. And we get up really early, and they go to bed really late. It
Right.
doesn't do well when you have your windows open, and
My kids
So-
are home in bed.
yeah, I'm talking about, you know where we're, you know what neighbor I'm talking
Nobody,
about.
nobody in particular.
Are there park time for our parks as well? What time is that? Is that 10 as well?
Dusk, I believe.
Oh, dusk,
So,
okay. And so if someone was in a park, you could say something as
yeah,
well?
Adult or, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, that's separate.
So we have those things
yeah.
covered.
So if there are noise nuisances after 10, you should just call it in, huh?
Does that go for William Clark along the beach there as well, since that's county?
That's
Yeah,
county.
That's
County?
County park,
But we
but,
control it, don't we?
We enforce it.
but we do patrol it, so, sure.
it's the same.
You know, because of its location, I don't know that you would hear much noise, I
Right.
suppose, in a residential area, but it could.
2 in the morning, I'm pretty sure if your officer saw 20 cars parked down there, somebody'd take a walk down.
That's an
just to see what's
invitation to
going
go
on.
see who's down there.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time
Oh,
and
absolutely.
clarification.
Because say this comes up every once in a while, and you think about it, and you look back and go, oh, yeah, that's right, there's constitutional issues, and, you know, do we want to get into that? If it's not a problem, it'd be difficult to even say that we could establish the ordinance based on the requirements, so.
Well, like I said, it sort of filtered down to that, from that conversation, because we were talking about hotspots and trouble, and we got trouble right here in Washougal.
River City.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
John, thanks, Chief. Second opportunity for anybody from the public that would like to speak. Richard, Molly, one of you.
Well, I was interested in this topic when I read the agenda about juvenile curfews. And in fairness, I actually decided to kind of do about 15 minutes of cursory review, Googling. And I was surprised to find that in the 90s, Camas had a juvenile curfew, which they repealed. I went to their ordinance site and looked it up, and they did repeal it. I kind of read the executive overview of a study that was done in the late 90s when this seemed to be really popular. And there were 22 cities in Washington that did have juvenile curfews. But of course, my question would be, is it enforceable? Do we have the manpower to enforce it? And do we have statistical data that shows that a juvenile curfew actually reduces crime? And so those would be the questions I would have. But I found it fascinating, the number of cities that do. And aside from all of the court cases, it's been to the state Supreme Court a number of times. But I thought it was an interesting topic. Maybe prevention is better. We all know that not every parent in Washougal does the best for their child. Thank you.
Well
So,
put.
yeah, that was exactly the
Well put.
conversation, that prevention item.
Richard,
On the railroad overpass issue, it wasn't clear to me from the presentation what the starting point would be for the study that you're proposing. And I guess that's an important thing.
starting point in
The
regards to.
starting point, well, I heard it mentioned that, anyway, I heard it mentioned that this study would determine if this is the best place for an overpass. So are other, is it gonna be kind of a eyes wide open look at it and narrow down to that? Or is it gonna be to justify or determine the non-feasibility of the 27th Street location?
I get it, sure. We can certainly bring back to council the information on the look of the crossing at 32nd and the potential impacts and the costs. So you have a comparison, which is one of the reasons why 27th was chosen. It's half or more of the cost of a overcrossing at 32nd plus potential.
It would be $30 million to do an overcrossing at 32nd.
Yeah, and then there's also potential development or the commercial impacts with where it lands. So there's pretty large impacts to building a bridge at that location that was looked at.
The Jack in the Box area, Safeway.
That's pretty much, well, there's,
Gas
I mean, you land north of that area with the overpass. Yep, we'll bring that information back so we can revisit it with the council as well.
So more to come on the 10th.
Well, I'll be here.
Anyone else? Okay, I've got no items for you this evening, council. Any items? In case we will stand adjourned and be back here at 7 o'clock for council meeting. Thank you.
Filling in.